Now, there's no shortage of ideas in the world today. Truth is, there never has been a shortage of ideas in the world. The difference today is that we have the technology to spread those ideas far beyond our tribes, our villages, our towns, and our cities. Now, I'll be the first to say that I believe overall, the ability to connect and share ideas globally is a good thing. See, the sharing of ideas has been at the heart of human progress from the very beginning. So naturally, having the ability to share and communicate with others across the country and across the globe, well, this will help to move us forward. But progress has never been, nor will it ever be, a smooth ride. Now, a perfect example of this is Gutenberg's printing press. In 1454, Johannes Gutenberg's commercial printing press was up and running. Now, this idea of commercial was very different from what we think of today. See, information and the written word was not a competitive market. After all, in 1454, literacy was a luxury reserved for nobles and clergy. Because of that, there was only one game in town, and that was the Catholic Church. Now, at that time, the Church was the very definition of status quo. They were the most powerful and influential institution throughout all of Europe. Fast forward roughly 50 years after Gutenberg's printing press went live, and you'll find that there's a new intellectual movement that's in full swing, and it's calling much of the Church's teachings and influence into question. Now you may be thinking, well, 50 years is a long time. Right. Widespread disruption to the status quo doesn't happen overnight. It happens little by little over time. And in this case, it's what finally led to what the Catholic Church deemed a heretical cult that needed purging from the earth, more commonly known today as the Protestant Reformation. You see, the printing press took literacy and access to sacred texts out of the hands of the few and made it available to the many. New ideas, they were being formed, they were being documented, and they were being distributed like never before. Ideas from theologians and philosophers like Thomas More and Erasmus, well, these were making their way through every part of European society. So naturally, with this many ideas running wild, challenges to the status quo were inevitable. And in this case, the greatest challenge came from the inside by a German monk who, inspired by Erasmus's writings, dared to challenge the long-held ideas of the Church. He did so by nailing his famous 95 Theses to the door of the Castle Church in Wittenberg, which, by the way, he created using a Gutenberg printing press. All that to say, the dissemination of ideas is made possible at scale because of these technological advancements. Now, I want to be clear here. I celebrate that, but I also recognize that with ideas at scale, there's a whole lot of bad ones that get in the mix. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is, how do we spot a truly bad idea? Well, that's what this video will help you do. That's at least the intention. But first, I want to emphasize that the criteria for good and bad is not partisan. There are just as many bad ideas on the left as there are on the right. What I'm going to share with you are 3 ways to challenge any idea or narrative that is being put in front of you, especially if it's something that just reinforces your own worldview. So with that in mind, let's get started. Now, the first way to spot a really bad idea is if the idea leaves no room for debate or critique. In other words, any challenge to the accepted dogma means that you're the enemy, you're a traitor, and you must be shut down. Now, this has been one of the biggest problems with political discourse in recent years. See, alternative ideas are becoming less tolerated and less likely to be entertained by those that don't currently adopt them. It's become kind of like a game. You find your camp, you keep up with the rules, and you be sure to warn those who step out of line. See, people end up looking to these doctrines rather than the facts that are on the ground. They're even willing to deny their own knowledge and personal experience on the matter. In addition to that, any facts that emerge that are in direct conflict with their ideology, well, these are ignored, they're rejected, or they're even banned. Now, while I don't want to get super political here, I think it's important that I use an example that you'll certainly be familiar with to illustrate this point. Early in the pandemic, the idea that the coronavirus could have leaked from a lab was rejected by a certain camp, the anti-Trump camp in particular, which includes much of the media. And because Trump said it, then the idea was that it had to be racist. A criticism that is not unwarranted, by the way. However, vitriol for the messenger took this theory off the table and right into the conspiracy bin. Now my point is, political camps had been so firmly formed and strictly adhered to, the default was, and still is, to reject anything that the other side said, even if the facts were still open to debate. In fact, social media sites went so far as to ban content that asserted the lab leak theory as a possibility, a ban which has since been lifted. Now, as of this recording, we still don't know the exact origins of the coronavirus, but over the past year, especially as more information has emerged, an actual conversation has begun on the topic among experts who are much more willing to entertain this idea now than they were under the previous administration. Now, I'm not saying that the natural origins theory is the bad idea here. We don't know yet. The bad idea was assuming early on that it was the only possibility worth entertaining. I mean, just imagine what we could have learned if we had taken alternative theories more seriously and sought the facts out more urgently. After all, that's what it means to follow the science. Now, the second way to spot really bad ideas is that they speak in terms of urgency and absolute certainty. For example, this thing will happen and that's why we must do this thing right now. Or, this thing has happened and you must take action right now. You see, with instant access to information, we've also become accustomed to being much more reactionary. See, opinions are formed too quickly, and before all the facts are in, the narratives are set and the lines are drawn. Now, if you really stop to think about it for a second, the vast majority of emergencies are not. But if I can convince you that it is, well, then you're more likely to take action without thinking, regardless of the long-term consequences. See, most of what we encounter on a daily basis is not urgent. But if we respond to it as though it is, then we could be making decisions that we'll regret. All that said, taking time to gather more information will always serve you better in the long run. So be on the lookout for language that is absolute and urgent, and you will almost certainly, I said almost, have found a bad idea. Now, the third way to spot really bad ideas is if this idea blatantly ignores context. This is the willful discarding of key details in a story that are, let's say, inconvenient. Now, you'll sometimes spot this in news articles that use the tactic of burying conflicting information at the end where most readers have stopped reading. So, you get a nice, neat narrative at the beginning, and then a couple less than convenient facts without commentary at the end. Or worse, they'll neglect to include these facts at all. See, when an idea leads with a definitive conclusion based on limited information and lacking an appreciation for nuance, well, then you've hit the jackpot. And chances are, you're probably on Twitter. Because let's face it, who has time for context when you only have 240 characters to work with? But I hope that you are smarter than that. So assuming you are, and that you're getting your information from legitimate news sources, it's still your job to differentiate the narrative from the facts. Now, if you're finding more narrative and less than sufficient facts, then it's still your job to explore it further before you adopt that idea. So there you have it. 3 ways to spot really bad ideas. Now, to sum it all up, this is really just critical thinking 101. See, my advice to you is simple. Be skeptical, ask better questions, and do your own research, and then come to your own conclusions.